Hey everybody, welcome to Example of Play. In this video, I'm continuing my learning series for the Proud and the Few. It's part of the Squad Battle series from Wargame Design Studio, focused on the Marines in the Pacific in World War II. In the first video, we learned the basics, how to move our units around, engage in a little combat, do an assault, but we mostly just had our infantry, and we didn't go much further than just the basics. So in this video, I found this little scenario that's perfect for demonstrating a few more things. It's called Tanks at Munda, Eye to Eye. It's part of a series of 3 small scenarios that all feature tanks in this location on New Georgia. So a place I'm not sure I've ever played a scenario in a war game on New Georgia. So an interesting location in the early part of the Pacific War. In this scenario, as you can see, it's pretty small, pretty simple, but presents a tactical problem where we need to get our infantry over here to capture these objectives, which of course are defended, but they have no cover. It's all the strip of wide open land between them and the objective with very little tactical options for how to deal with that. Lucky for us, there is a platoon of Stuart tanks rolling up right behind our infantry that will arrive to help. And there's some off-map heavier artillery. We have a couple mortars like in the first scenario we looked at, but this one we have some off-map artillery that we'll be able to use. So we'll look at that, and we'll look at a couple other things along the way to get us a little deeper into the game. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first off, I'm gonna go over just a little UI thing that I didn't mention in the first video. So in that one, I played in the sort of isometric 3D view where the units are depicted a little more artistically, a little more immersively with the terrain versus the 2D view where it's more of kind of board game counters and less artistic, but conveys a little more information. So as you can see here, you have these colored tabs on some of the units, and you might be wondering, what do those mean? What's that indicating? So ones that have a tab in the upper left, it's either going to be gold for junior leaders or silver for senior leaders. So here we see we have a few leaders scattered around. We got a couple sergeants. Here's our lieutenant, a corporal. So you have different leader units will have a little gold tab in the top left. And if you had someone higher ranking, they might have a silver tab there. Then you see these other ones. We have some blue and red in the lower left. What does that mean? Any kind of equipment team, so like a special weapons team, or anything that's not sort of a standard infantry squad, is going to have a colored tab in the bottom left indicating what kind of equipment it has. There's like 8 different ones. I'm not going to expect to list them all out or anything, but you can see here for this scenario, our machine gun teams have blue. So it's easy to find where's my machine gun teams. They have this, the blue tab there. And then the red tab, these are our mortar teams. So it's going to vary depending on what type of unit they are. Some other, like another good one is like orange is for flamethrower teams. And then there's 5 other colors besides that indicating special equipment that those units are carrying. So that's just what that means. And then as we play here, we'll see some more things pop up and we'll talk about them as they appear. Next, I want to show you a couple alternate ways to move your units that I didn't go over in the first video. So in that one, I did just the most basic way to move a unit, which is you select it and then you can right click an adjacent hex to move 1 hex at a time. And if you try to click 2 hexes away, they won't move. You can only, if you do that way, you can only move 1 hex at a time, which is okay. It's the most precise way to move, but also very click heavy in this game. There's some other ways you can move your units. So you can click them, select, and then you can click and drag to move a unit several hexes at a time. To see how far your units can move, you can hit H. And you'll see you get the shaded hexes everywhere. And the unshaded ones are the ones you can move to that they can reach by hitting H. You see that. If you want to get this shading versus the default in this game was the like yellow outlines, which is like this, which I didn't use in the first video because if you don't have a unit selected, you get the yellow hexes everywhere, which is not, I don't know, I don't like that. But if you come up here to settings and change your hex highlights to hex shading, now it works a little better. You get this, and then you can hit H to toggle that on and off. And like we mentioned before, you can also do V, the same thing, to see how far your units can see. So very low visibility here in the jungle. Now back to what we were on, how to move a unit a little further than 1 hex at a time. You can just select and see how far they can move, and then you just left click the unit and click and drag. So you can do I'm holding down left and then say I want to move there, let go, and they move, and you get the little line showing where they move to. Now let's say you want to move more than one unit at a time. So how do you do that? Well, you can do column movement by selecting a unit and then holding down Alt whenever you have them move. And all the units in that formation with it will move together, and they'll basically kind of follow the leader wherever you send the selected unit. So here we have Lieutenant Miles selected. He's got his platoon arrayed in front of him. If we hold down Alt and right click, we'll see that they start moving behind him in kind of like a snake. They're just going to follow exactly where he goes, however far he goes. Now we're in the jungle here, so we can only go a couple hexes, but you get the idea. This is a good way to keep your units in formations together. Just have them move along this way, and you could say have the entire platoon move as one, or at least along the same path, so they don't get all jumbled up, and saves you a bunch of clicking. But of course, it comes with the downside that you're going to be strung out in a line, and you want to be cautious with it because sometimes they might not move exactly the way you think they're going to move. But a good way to move units across a lot of ground without having to click on each individual unit and move them all up separately. You can also do the click and drag with this. So you can select, hold Alt, and well, these mortar teams probably can't move very far. We'll do down here this guy, hold Alt, and then you can click and drag, and you'll see that they move as far as they can along towards the spot that I let go of the button on. So again, caution with that, as you know, the units might not follow exactly the path you're thinking, but great for moving a bunch of units very quickly. So those are some alternate movement options other than the clicking one hex at a time. Because of course, in the bigger scenarios, that's going to be a lot of clicking. And then finally, before we get to the action, let's look at one other UI thing, and that is the reinforcement dialog. So in the first scenario, we didn't have any reinforcements arrive. All our units were on the map at the start. We had some units leave towards the end of the scenario, but no reinforcements come in. So if you want to see what's available in the scenario, you can come up here to Scheduled under the units, and you'll see these are the units that we're expecting to arrive. We can see when they're going to arrive over here on the left, and then sometimes it could be variable the exact turn that they arrive depending on what's here. And then you do know what hex they're expected to arrive in, so you can click to see the hex, and then you can see what it is, and then you can double click to open that and get some more details. So we can see that our first reinforcements are going to be a couple Stuarts that are going to appear here, and then we can see kind of what they're equipped with, some machine guns and cannon, very nice. And then another one will appear down here, and then a little later in the battle at 8:35, so several turns into it, we can expect Captain Akers to arrive, who has a handy talkie, a radio, and he will be our forward observer to call in some artillery. But we'll get to that later. Once the reinforcements arrive, they'll show up in this dialog where they've arrived, and then we'll look at how to place them on the next turn. All right, so let's go ahead and get a little action going here. We'll move up our Marines, then get a little sight on the objectives. We definitely are not going to move them out into the open just yet. We're going to check that their visibility is from where they're at. They can't see out, so we'll move them, our machine gun team, up. Now they have line of sight up in this direction at least. And then we'll move up those guys there. There's some grass here, jungle there. We'll be a little cautious here at first, see what the enemy's got for us. And then down here as well, move that machine gun team up. See if we can get them into action. Now I'm going to turn up the speed here just a little bit so we can play a little faster since this scenario will involve a lot more shooting here right off the bat. So in the turn, start taking some fire. We're spotting some of the Japanese spots, and our guys are returning fire automatically. And then like we discussed in the first video, so we got one right there, so we took a casualty. If it's 0, then our guys are okay. But then we also, when we're looking here, we see these white tabs appear at the bottom, and that means these guys have hit the dirt, basically. When they get shot at in this in-squad battles games, your guys will automatically hit the dirt because this is a more zoomed in tactical view of the battle. going to ground doesn't cost them any movement points, but having them stand back up does cost movement points. So once they're on the ground, they're safer, but they're less mobile. And so as you can see, trying to cross this clearing with just our infantry here and no support, it's going to be pretty tough, because as soon as they even come up to the edge of the jungle, they're taking fire from multiple enemy positions along the line here. Quite a few. All right, we get our command report at the beginning of the turn, letting us know some reinforcements have arrived. Now in this game, when reinforcements arrive, they don't immediately appear on the map. You have to go and bring them onto the battlefield. All right, so now we have some tanks on our side. Let's check them out. We got 2 M3 Stuarts. Of course, these are light tanks that on the battlefields of Europe would be kind of the small fries of the battle when it comes to tanks. But here, they're perfect. They're light, they're maneuverable. They can get onto these little islands and be used to support our infantry, which is all we need is a tank that can roll up and negate these prepared Japanese positions where the tanks, they don't care about the machine guns and rifle fire. They can just roll up, and even with their little 37mm gun, they can just pop away and suppress with their machine guns and knock out these positions, or at least suppress them enough that our infantry can then close with them and get across this open ground that is deadly for the infantry, but great for the tanks. Now the tank handles in many ways the same as the infantry, but it's got a few unique features. When we look at it down here, we see the tank, its weapons are here to the right. And then also we have a little arrow indicating facing. Our infantry do have a facing. If we zoom in, we can see that they are facing in different directions. But this is really important for our tanks because it affects how they move. It could affect their weapons, which ones can fire in an arc in front of them. And also, of course, armor penetration with tanks is going to be different depending on the front versus the sides and the rear. So the facing is indicated with that arrow and up here. But also it can affect movement. So the tank can move forward, of course, better than it can move backwards. If it goes backwards into the hexes behind it, it's going to move at double the movement cost. And then, of course, here moving in the jungle, our tanks are going to be moving really slow. So they can only move up a couple hexes at a time. If we get them out to this open ground, they'll be able to move faster. But that's just kind of the nature of the conflict here. So we'll go ahead and start moving these guys up. And of course, they can't get too far on the first turn, but we will get them up into the battle so they can start shooting at those enemies of ours. And then we'll jump ahead a little bit. I'm not going to play out this whole battle just for the sake of your time. I'm just going to focus on the new stuff as we go. All right, so now we're on to the next turn. Our other Stuart arrived to help us out, rounding out our little platoon. And before we go further, though, we're going to look at one more UI thing. So as we already mentioned, when our units get shot at, they hit the dirt indicated by these 4 white bars across the bottom of the unit. But also as the battle goes on, you'll notice other colors start to appear on those bars. So this Japanese unit over here, they have 1 yellow bar. That means that they're disrupted, which is kind of the first state of being suppressed and getting shot at. That increases their movement cost, makes them a little less effective. Over here, our machine gun team, they've taken some casualties. You can see their gun now says it's undercrewed, so it's less effective. And they are pinned. So once a unit becomes pinned, if we hit H to open up our movement, we can see that they can't move forward. They can only move away from the enemy because basically they're being shot at, they're taking cover and trying not to get hit. If we do move them back, even though we're moving away, they now become 3 red bars. It's kind of hidden underneath there. But 3 red bars indicating that they are now demoralized, which means that they are pretty much useless. But luckily enough for us, we have an officer here, a leader, or not necessarily an officer, but a leader here that can do an attempt to do a rally to get them back up. We'll see if it works.
Move it.
Didn't work that time.
Forward.
So they're still demoralized. But you can use the leaders to try to recover them, or they'll go back to the disrupted state. Which then they just need kind of a moment of peace over the course of a turn to go back to normal. But that is what those little color bars indicate at the bottom. When you're playing on the 3D isometric, you won't get the white bars. You just get that the icon kind of changes to show the guys laying down instead of standing up. But you will get the yellow, orange, and red indicating their state of being suppressed. Okay, we're on the next turn here. We've moved our tanks up a little bit more where they'll be able to fire. A couple more UI things. You can see here this unit has the little silver tab in the top left that those are some senior leaders for the Japanese, so that makes them a juicy target to maybe take out. And I'll also mention some of these spots have a little letter up here in the top left, so an I there and a B there. What's that for? Well, when you're playing in this view, you can't see them visually quite as easy. So if you switch here, you can see, oh, these guys are in a bunker. These guys are in an improved position with the sandbags, which is easy to see in this view, but not so much in this view. So that's why you got the little letters there indicating that. So something useful to know. These guys are out in the open a little bit more. Actually, yeah, they're totally in the open. So we don't want to get our tanks too close to them because they got satchel charge, but they are a good target for our infantry machine gun teams maybe, while this Japanese bunker with its heavy machine gun, that's a great target for our stewards to try to take that out. So just for fun, let's have them take a couple shots. And you do that just the same as you did with the infantry. Easiest way is to hold control, so our cursor turns into a little crosshair, and then right click what you want them to shoot at. And then yeah, we'll carry on. I want to try to get that position suppressed a little bit maybe. But yeah, they're in a bunker, so it's going to be tougher to do so. But our stewards might be our best bet for actually accomplishing that. Now, one thing I'll do here just for fun, might not be a great idea in this scenario, but could be useful in other places. Vehicles can, of course, carry infantry. They can load up into trucks and things and half tracks, but they can also ride on the back of a tank. So if we wanted to do that, just as an example, we could select these guys, have them move there. Of course, they get shot at running out in the open. And you can see they've left behind a rifle from one of the casualties. But then we can select them and come up here and do this up arrow for load. And they might not have enough movement points. Okay, so I skipped ahead another turn just because I want to do this. We can select these guys and come up here, click this, or Control P to load. And then you'll see that now they're riding on the tank. It switches to having like a P on there. It says has riders here. And then the infantry squad moves over here to the right of the tank, showing that they are riding on it. And then of course they could get back off. If we select them, they can hop back off. Now doing all this in front of the Japanese has got them shot at. Not the smartest thing, but I just wanted to show how you could do that if you wanted to. And then kind of spoiler, but also tactical tip. In this scenario, this Japanese sniper just showed up out of nowhere back here, even though our tank just drove by, highlighting that our tanks have very poor visibility, especially here in the jungle, where they are extremely vulnerable to enemy infantry. So as historical, you might want to keep some infantry with your tanks. Might be a good case for them to ride on the tank going through the jungle, in case just some enemy infantry pop up out of nowhere. They got your infantry are there to help out your tank and keep it safe from the enemy. All right, now on to our final topic for this video. I've skipped ahead several turns to where Captain Akers has arrived as our final reinforcement, and he is going to be our forward observer because he is an officer who has a radio, meaning that he can call in fire support missions. We couldn't have called in the artillery before because none of our units had radios. If one of our tanks had a radio, we could call it in, but these tanks don't. They don't have it as part of their equipment here. But he does arrive with a walkie-talkie there, or a handy-talkie is what they called it, I guess, at that time. Now we also see that he's kind of hiding behind those guys, but he's got a silver bar indicating he's a senior leader, and he's got a light blue bar down here indicating that he's a unit with a radio, a different shade of blue than the machine gun teams. Now, obviously, things aren't going so great for our boys. We haven't made any progress at all, but we do have a nice juicy target over here that we could call in some of our artillery on. Like in most WS games, there is an artillery dialogue that we can click on. Some of them, there's separate ones for artillery and airstrikes. Here, they're combined into one support dialogue, and we can see that we got some 75mm howitzers available to us. Now, the artillery is a little more complex in this game than some of the other ones, where some of them you just click it here, you click on the map, and it happens. Here, we got to go through a couple steps to call in some artillery, so let's go through that. Now, our first step is we need a unit capable of calling the artillery, which we have now. Prior to him arriving, we couldn't have called it in because when you open this up, you see you got OK, which doesn't do anything, and we have call, which is grayed out, unless we select that and have a unit capable of calling it in. And we can see here there's a minimum delay, maximum delay, and number of missions they can do, which is just one in this scenario, and lets us know kind of what it is. He highlights with the binoculars there, letting us know that he can call it in. If we had additional units here that could call it in, there's a couple ways to start this. You can either select the unit that you want to be your spotter. So if there were like two guys here and we wanted to use one was better for some reason, higher ranking, or had better visibility on the target we want to hit, we could select the unit first and then hit Control B or this button. Or alternatively, you don't have to select anything. You can just hit that and it will just automatically select someone who's capable of calling it in. Now to start the process, we'll hit call and we'll see now that it says called there, but it doesn't happen immediately. We got to wait for it to become available, which means we got to suffer another turn or two of getting shot at. So let's skip ahead to that. All right, so I'm glad I skipped ahead because it did take the full 3 turns for it to arrive, but now we have the message support is available. So now Cat Makers, he's still alive. He's getting shot at. He's hit the dirt. But if we open this up, we now see that this fire mission is available. So now our button here changes to target. So we can hit target. And then now we get kind of some options here. So we can see what we're shooting. If they had multiple loads, so they have HE and AP. But we'll just go with HE since we're shooting at some infantry here. And then right click where we want to target. And we got a big cluster of enemies right there, so we'll go ahead and hit them with that. And then you can see it's not totally accurate. It's kind of hitting all over the place. And so, yeah, that was a long wait to not get a whole lot out of it right there. But that's how you do it. That's how you call in an artillery mission. So a multi-step process in this game to call it in could be very powerful. I don't know if it's maybe he was getting shot at or what, but not very effective. Kind of a lot of buildup for not much out of it. Okay, so I think that's enough topics for this video. Obviously, we didn't make much progress here. I wasn't really trying to push, but if you're playing a scenario, you'd use your tanks to do a whole lot of shooting to try to suppress these and then get your guys across there, and then hope that your artillery was a little more effective. But anyway, so in this video, we covered vehicles, some unique things about them. We got some tanks into action. We went over some more UI elements, some more movement options, and then we learned how to call in an artillery strike to help us out. So thanks for watching. Be sure to hit like and subscribe to get some more videos. We'll play a couple more scenarios of the Proud and the Few here and see anything else we haven't got to yet and try those things out.